Hello, welcome to EarnQA. So in this session, we are going to look at the overview of the UFT. So what is this overview? Example, if we wanted to parameterize the data, where is that applicable? And where do we start to look into the parameterization? Or where is that data table that we would make use of? Example, if we wanted to design a script, and that script, how many ways that can look like? And if you wanted to understand the UI first before getting started working with the UFT, so what are the different options, palettes, layouts of the QTP? So that everything now we would go and step by step learn about the complete overview of the QTP. Let's get started. The agenda in this session is, I would again talk about the fundamental brief about QTP, and then I would talk about the complete layout, the add-ins, the record and playback, where does the VB applicable, what is object repository, what is the keyword view, what is the export view, what is the data table, what is the available keywords panel, what is the solution, what is the toolbox. So everything, whatever is essential for us to know before we get started, we would know that. And then we would talk about the other segments. What exactly is the script? And while we start recording, while we start designing the script, what are the things that we must know? And then we would see what is the QTP automation testing process. So that is the agenda. Let's get started. The first thing that we must know in the QTP is the keyword view. So what is this keyword view? If you look at this slide, so keyword view is a simplest, easiest way to understand a minimal things. It explains you four things. What is the object's representation? What are the operations that we are doing on the object? And what is the test data that is being applied or that is used for so and so object? And what is the documentation or description about that particular line of code? So that way it explains in a minimal to the fresher or to the fundamental beginner. So if you look at this slide, it explains the application under test objects with the logical names. If you see in the below diagram, it says first name, last name, phone, username, address one, city, state, postal code, email. So every object is one of the element in the web application. So this particular keyword view explains you what are all the objects that you're trying to operate. If you see the operation column, you could see the methods that we are implementing all the objects. Example, again the first name set. And the value is Gary. It means that if you look at this particular line, it means that on the first name box or first name edit box, we are trying to enter a value called Gary. And if you see the next line, on the phone edit box, we are entering a value called phone number. So it explains you in a brief. It explains you the minimal information. So keyword view explains you the objects of the application with their logical names. So just we need to wait to know what is a logical name, what is a physical description, or what is a property. We would come to know that in the next session, but however at this point of time, logical name is a pet name. A logical name is the way that the object is being called. Example, first name. It might have the actual properties. It is edit box and it is a length of so and so. It is a width of so and so. But however, as a whole, it is known to be first name. It is known to be phone. It is known to be email. So these are all called as a logical names. So logical names are like pet names to the objects. So it explains the objects with the logical names, and also it explains the operations that are being driven, that are performed on the objects. If you see the second column, it explains clearly on each and everything. It explains all the operations: set secure, click. So these are all the methods that we are doing or implementing on the application objects. And keyword view also explains you the data that we are using against each and every object. Example: first name, enter a value called Gary. Last name, enter a value called EarnQA. City, enter a value called Texas. So it explains you all the objects with their logical names, operations that we do on the objects, and the data that we are implementing. And the last one, it explains you the description what we are trying to do. Click on the register link. Enter Gary in the first name edit box. Enter EarnQA in the last name edit box. It explains you so that we would understand what is that operation, what is that statement, what is that script line meaning to be. If you look at this slide, it is all about keyword view is the simplest view, and it is for the beginners, where all the beginners would easily understand the objects, the operations, and the test data. And according to that, it allows us to change the operations if required. It allows us to change the operations and the data if required. Example: if I go back to the application directly, let me just go and open up the UFT. If you see that on the first name, we are using a method called set or operation. What is operation? Operation nothing but a method, an activity. Let's say I do not want to use this. So what can we use this? So I wanted to use this click, or I wanted to use something else called long press, or I wanted to use something called right click, or I wanted to use something called set secure. So there are other methods applicable. If we do not know what operation that we need to apply, it explains you so that we can pick the methods from the list box or operations list. And similarly, if you do not want to enter Gary, you wanted to enter something else, you could still go and say that. So this would allow you to change the data as well. So this is so-called keyword view. And the next one what we look at is known to be export view. So what is export view? As the name says, export view explains the code, and the code is also in the hierarchy pattern. What is the parent and what is the child and what is the operation? Example: if you see the script on a browser in a page with respect to object called link whose name is register, we are clicking. On a browser in a page with respect to an object called first name edit box, we are entering a value called Gary. So it explains you in detail the code. So as the name said, export view is advanced view where we would code, or we would try to manipulate the code, or where we would use the code to program, create the functions, or create the parameters, or create the enhancement of the code. It is for the advanced users or experts, so that we could programmatically add the code, we could programmatically change the code, we could create the functions, call the functions, and establish a full-fledged framework-based scripting. And that is what it is called export view. So let's go back and see. As the name says, it provides greater efficiency while we work with the code. And it is completely a coding based window. It explains code with respect to hierarchy, parent, child, and the operation. Example: if you take the first line, browser and page is the parent. And what is the child? Link, register is the child. What is the operation? Click is the operation. It explains you the parent, child, and the operation representation. It is very easy, but it is needed for all the automation testers to understand this logic. What is the program? What is the parent, what is the child, and what is the operation that we need to perform. So that way we could directly come down to export view and we start scripting or we start coding for the application. So that's what we need to understand, the implementation part, so that it could help us to program, and it would allow us to create functions, loops, or parameters, or data-driven methodologies, or frameworks, because it's all code-oriented representation. Let me recapture. So we're trying to see the overview of the UFT. First thing we looked at is the keyword view. As the name says, keyword view is the simplest view where it explains the objects, operations, and the values that are being used for the objects, and it is for the beginners. Whereas the second one, what we are trying to see is the export view. As the name says, it is the representation of the code. Only the experts can start coding or scripting on the export view. And in this export view, it would allow us to create functions, procedures, and code structures, loops, parameters, so that we could create full-fledged test in the export view. Let's go and talk something about called active screen. What is active screen? Active screen is an area where QTP captures and stores application screen while we record the script. I repeat, active screen is an area where QTP or UFT captures and stores application screens or screenshots while we record the test. So why does that do? It helps you to understand what's the operation, what is the object against your script that is being generated, so that once everything is done, you could go back and reference what is the object in the application. And I have used a method called set. Can I use the other method? So that way you would easily review, that way you would update your script if required, that way you would correlate application objects with the script. And that's what active screen helps us to have the snapshot stored. So it provides snapshots or screenshots of the application. It captures every screenshot while we record a script. Not only that, it enables you to parameterize. It enables you to enhance your script. Not only that, it would also enable you to insert checkpoints, insert the other operations. So we will see what is a parameterization. We would also see what is a checkpoint. But at this point of time, active screen is an area where it would allow to see the references, or it's a place where QTP captures and stores application snaps or screenshot, so that later on we could reference the application objects with the code. Let me just go back and show you in the QTP. If you look at here, this is called the keyword view. But what is export view? The export view, as we said, it is the program where directly we could just go and code for it. Example, if we wanted to code, I would say on my browser, in my page, what is the page? The page what we have is register, or let me say on this page, I wanted to work with a web edit whose name is city, and I wanted to enter something called London, example. So this would enable you to code. This would enable you to program. So as the name says, it is for experts, where our experts can directly code for it. Example, I wanted to have a program for loop. For iteration 1 to 10, what I wanted to do, or something like I wanted to do some verification point while something happens, let me do some program. So this is the place where we code. This is the place where we program. This is the place where we enhance. This is the place where we modulate so that it looks better script to execute. And what is active screen? Active screen is the area that represents your objects. Example, I wanted to see what is his first name. The moment when we select the first name, it would highlight, okay, let me pin out. It would highlight the object there. Example, let me just go and click on phone, number, or this edit box. Let me just go and choose the click register. So this is the way it highlights what is that link that we are talking about. Let me just go and say postal code. And this is what it enables you to go back and reference what is that object. And later on, you would also go and do the checkpoints. Example, I wanted to apply a checkpoint here. What is the checkpoint? Okay, still it is loading. Let me wait for a minute. And this is the code. For each and every line, a snapshot is being captured so that it would be used as a reference. So that is the active screen. Let me just go back to keyword view and let me just click on last name. The last name, where is the last name? The last name, it is still loading. Let me just go back to export view. And it is loading. Once it is loaded, you would see that particular active screen object is being enabled, so that we would understand that object is the exact reference to this particular line of code. And what is the use? We could reference, and we could also enhance the script from here. We could create checkpoints, we could create other parameters, and we could see the methods applicable or not from the active screen area. And that's all about the active screen in the actual QTP area. And what is next? The next one is the toolbox. What is a toolbox? Toolbox is a place where it has all the existing libraries, where it has all the objects of the object repository, so that we could drag and drop to generate the script. Toolbox is a place where it is also known to be available keywords pane, where all the things are applicable and shown, so that the existing functionalities or existing functions could be dragged and dropped into canvas, so that we could generate the script automatically. Example, let me just go back to this screen and explain you. Okay, if you see here, active screen is ready. Since the active screen is ready, you could see this is the first name and this is the address one. The address one, this particular area is loading. Once it is loaded, you could see the active screen where the address one field is being highlighted. Now let's go back and see what is the available keywords pane or toolbox. If you see here, yeah, you could see that available, the address one field is highlighted. So this is the reference because we chosen this and it is highlighting this. So now you understand, okay, this particular code and this particular edit box is referring to this object in the application. And what is that we wanted to do? We wanted to operate. I wanted to insert a checkpoint, or I wanted to see what are all the other steps that I wanted to insert. So we would talk about this little later, but active screen is an area where UFT captures and stores application objects during recording the script. Now, this is called Toolbox. And what is this Toolbox is all about? Toolbox explains you what are all the existing libraries and what are all the existing objects, so that we could easily drag and drop to create the script. Example, if I drag here, a line of code is automatically created. Let me just go and drag and drop phone number here, or drag and drop postal code here, or drag and drop 10 fields at a time here. Let me drag and drop. So it generates the code automatically. So it would allow you only one by one, not more than. So this would be applicable for existing libraries. Also, example, I do not have any existing libraries. So let me just go and add few libraries so that we could make use of them. Let me just go to resources and let me add library. The library is what I wanted to pick from the test. So this is the place where I wanted to pick. Let me pick get object to properties, and let me say apply. Okay, and save the script. Now you would see all the methods which are already there in that library are listed. Now easily, you don't need to write a program again. You could easily drag and drop. Example, let me drag and drop here, and this is the property. Let me drag and drop here. And what is that? So while you choose, it leads to that particular function. So this is the function. And what is that function? This particular function is reading the property called text. And such a way it is very easy. If we have the existing functions already, we could just select the functions here and drag and drop into the canvas. And that is simple facility, easy way to create the script from the existing libraries, from the existing object repository through a place called Toolbox. And that's all about the Toolbox. So Toolbox or available keywords is a pane or area where it would allow us to drag and drop components or functions or the objects into canvas so that script can be automatically generated. The next one what we look at is data table. So what is a data table? So data table is all about a place where we could parameterize the test. Example, I have a login scenario where I wanted to iterate the test for 10 times, but where do we pass 10 user data? And one of the easiest way to parameterize, to pass the data in the QTP is called data table. So there are so many things that we need to talk about data table types, data table operations, export, import, Excel, inbuilt QTP data table. There are so many things that we need to talk about. That comes a later stage, but at this point of time, a data table is an inbuilt utility of the QTP where it would allow us to create parameterization, where it can be used to create test data driven methodology. Example, let me just go and show you that in the QTP. So this is the data table. Basically, there are two tables by default, global, actionable. So we will see what is global, what is actionable little later. And that's all about the data table. Let's go and see the complete layout. So this is the layout. The first one is called menu bar, and the actual title is called title bar. And where we could create new test, open existing script, or add a function library, this is called file toolbar. And this is the exact bar where we could add test, new test, existing test, something called. And this is the place where we could create actions. What is action? We would talk about action is something which is similar to test or similar to function which performs certain action, which can be reusable, which can be called multi times. So we'll talk about the little later, but this is the place where we could create new action or existing action we can call, we could do something else, a copy of action, something more kind of things, which we would learn about down the line. And this is called debugging tool, where I wanted to run step by step or run from step or from to a step. So something called debugging toolbar. And this is called test pane, where the script is generated or where we could create the script. And this is called active screen, where it stores the objects or snapshots information. This is called data table, where we could use this for parameterization. And this is called status bar. It would explain you the line number certain times, the script or function name, or if there is any error, that error information. And this is called test script, and this is called toolbox. So there are so many things that we need to know. You will come back and learn everything one by one again. So thank you so much for watching the video. Let me summarize. So in this session, we're trying to learn the layout, the overview of the QTP or UFT. So far we have seen 6 important things: the keyword view, export view, data table, active screen, toolbox, and then the complete menus of the QTP. Again, there are so many things to look at. So down the line, as we start recording, as we start scripting, we would learn each and everything in detail. So thank you so much for watching the video. Please visit EarnQA.com. There are so many videos, presentations, articles, books, PDFs with regards to automation, test management, performance testing, and functional testing. Thank you, and see you again.